This is Jonathan Lane from Fan Film Factor, and today I'm in my bathrobe because it's 6 a.m. I haven't showered, I haven't shaved, and I am awake at this time. Try not to talk too loud to wake the rest of the people in the house. But anyway, the reason that I am awake so early is that I am interviewing three wonderful people, wonderful fan filmmakers from the land down under. And they are in Perth, Australia. And for them, it's the end of the day. It is 10 p.m. This is the only way that we could do it where one or the other of us wasn't like in the middle of the workday or in the middle of sleeping in the middle of the night. So, uh, anyway, it's going to be a fun little interview to see if I can stay awake through it. Anyway, I want to welcome today Mr. AARON VANDERKLEY, who is, let's see, yeah, point to him that way there, the last guy, the first guy there. Anyway, AARON is an amazing filmmaker from Perth, Australia, as I said. He hit the Star Trek fan film scene back in 2016, I believe it was, with The Needs of the Many, which was a very rare NX era film from the 22nd century of Star Trek. And he followed it up with, I believe it was The Derelict, and then Good Men, and then The Fall of Starbase One, and then Line of Duty, which was excellent, won a whole bunch of fan film awards. So he had done in about 5 years, I guess, five very excellent NX era fan films. And then suddenly he jumped over the 23rd century completely and into the 24th century and did Voyager era films. There's been three of them. The most recent one now is Resistance, which we're going to talk about today. But three excellent Voyager era fan films that he has collected under the brand, I suppose you could call it, of These Are the Voyages. And the fact is that these are some of the most amazing fan films you'll ever see, and you'll discover why, simply because they're filmed in a very, very small room with the most incredible sets that are pretty much the product of the AARON that I'm talking to. There he is. And the other AARON next to him, here we go. And that's Aaron Chappell. And that AARON is the production designer and executive producer behind all of these things. And also, this could not happen without the wonderful acting ability of Miss Kate Elder. Here we go. There she is. Yes, there. Perfect. Hi, Kate. Kate plays the captain of the USS Explorer, and These Are the Voyages. You were not in any of the NX era stuff, right? I don't think.
No, no, I only played in these last three ones.
But she was the captain, so she's important. So we're going to chat about how it was acting inside of a box. And but the first thing I want to ask you about, AARON, is so the thing about Resistance, if hopefully you folks have already watched it since it's on the blog above this interview. And of course, if you're just popping into the interview on YouTube, I have a link to the fan film. But this has been probably your most ambitious in terms of production design fan film yet. Were you thinking as you wrote this script, oh my God, this is a lot of stuff I have to build? Or is it, I just want to make a good script first and we'll figure it out later?
I think because the story kind of evolved quite significantly from that initial story, we sort of knew what sets we needed, and we were actually building the sets before the script was finalized, and it did go through fairly significant changes, which altered some of the sets that we were going to do. But yeah, I guess it was kind of trying to we always want to do something better, not necessarily bigger, but always something better and to learn from the previous film. So I guess this is the sort of the line of duty of the second series, really. And the production brief for the crew was First Contact, but if it was a Voyager episode.
I guess that works. Yeah, first, and in this case, First Contact, the movie, not First Contact, the episode. But yeah, so at this point, I think we should talk a little bit about where you film, because I'm not sure people realize exactly how small what's where do you, I mean, you film in a garage, in a basement, in a small warehouse? What is this? place that you do your stuff?
So this is a garage. It's a double car garage. And somehow we managed to transform it into many different sets. And the best thing about putting up all these different sets is every day when the actors come in, they're kind of taken aback by the fact that one day this was a hallway, the next day it's a cave. I remember the first time I worked with Kate was for another Star Trek fan film that we did some B-roll for. And Kate arrived. I'm sure she can tell the story, but Kate arrived in this suburban house and then walked in this garage, probably thinking what is going on, and then into this sort of crazy set.
I know, yeah. I can still like visualize that moment I arrived at your house, and it was just like, I didn't know too much about the project, but it sounded kind of interesting, and I was like, okay, well, yeah, this will be, a good experience, and yeah, walking into.
They don't kill me with a kitchen knife or something when I get there.
Walking into Aaron's home and the hallway, and I'm like, so, and it's just a normal, suburban house, and I'm like, okay. And so he said, okay, we'll be filming off here, and takes me down a little hallway that goes into their garage. And literally, like, after a few footsteps, suddenly it's like there's dry ice and it's dark and there's lights beeping, and it's just like I'm now in a spaceship. Okay. But that's what's so great about what Aaron does. He manages to create those worlds in a place that isn't that world, just through his ingenuity and imagination. And so, yeah, when you're an actor in that kind of space, it's a whole lot easier to be able to kind of go, well, that's where I am now. This is good.
Here in America, we have another fan filmmaker. His name is Gary Davis, and he is the showrunner of Dreadnought Dominion. And he built in his basement an entire shuttlecraft, cockpit, back room, little briefing room to the side. And it was for a thing called Project Runabout. And the first episode, he invited, he basically had a woman that he found through a local advertising, advertisement or whatever, local actress, to come in to basically go to his home and to be a Starfleet officer. And she showed up because apparently such a thing is not anything to worry about. Okay, yeah, we're coming to my basement and wear a very skimpy red uniform. But apparently it was met his wife, and it's like, okay, no, they're nice normal people. So had you known Aaron at all before this, or was this just like you replied to a want ad or whatever? And
it was a casting call that Aaron put out for the B-roll project. So yeah, we hadn't met up to that point. So yeah, when he was casting for this series of films, I was very keen to kind of put my hat in the ring and see if I was going to be able to work with him again, because I knew, like, just from doing that little project, that it was going to be fabulous if I could get involved with it. Plus, his mum's catering is just the best. So that's my motivation more than anything. Great script, good catering, I'm on there.
It's true. It's good. It's hard to find good craft services, and if your mom can do it. So what does your mom make for the actors, Aaron?
Well, my mum is Italian, so she will make anything from a lasagna to a curry to soup, tacos.
The specialty being scones.
Scones, yes. Actually,
the scones that really got me. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure the last time we worked with Kate, she said, "I'll come back one condition: your mum makes scones."
Yeah.
It's funny. Sometimes fan filmmakers say, "Oh, you got to come down and visit us and come to one of our shootings." So it's very difficult, for me to travel anywhere. Because I have a family, I have to take care of a son. But for the scones, I might fly to Australia. We'll see. I'd love to come by.
But do you know what? The catering thing was super important, because when I was at uni, the one thing that I did retain from my 3-year degree was that one of the tutors says, if you can't pay people, the very least you can do is give them a decent meal.
Absolutely.
And so we've always made sure that we do that.
And gas money. I always sort of say, look, you don't have to pay people, but at least don't make them pay for the privilege of coming onto your fan film. And sometimes actually you have to pay for people to fly to your location, as Josh Irwin has to do with his lead actor who lives in Atlanta and is flying to Georgia this weekend, I believe. But if you can't pay them, then at least feed them. So let's talk a little bit more about the sets. So Aaron and Aaron, we're going to switch over to the other Aaron, Aaron C, as opposed to Aaron V. So which one of you designs the sets, and which one of you is told, okay, do it?
I feel like Aaron has a very, very sort of vision in mind for his sets. Sometimes they're a lot more extravagant than is practical or feasible to do. So I'm the one that sort of reels him back in and says, look, we can do that, but on a sort of miniature scale. But I feel like we get lots of inspiration from Voyager, especially with this sort of era of films. Voyager was our big inspiration with their shapes, colors, textures. We just sort of looked at that and then put it into our own sort of spin for the ship. Yeah, it was pretty even. We both sort of looked at things, saw what worked, what didn't work, and went from there with designing, working out measurements, which was mainly me working out sort of length of things and sort of practicality within the space, because it was a tight space. We wanted to try and make the most of it. But yeah, we both worked quite in junction with each other to try and pull everything off.
I think with these three films, we had nothing virtually left over from the first five, so it was kind of starting again from scratch and learning from that experience. Obviously, Aaron wasn't part of that at that point, but I learned that the walls that I built were a bit too short and a bit too wide, and storing them was an issue. So we essentially went to proper what are standard like theatrical set sizes. And that worked better. And then, yeah, essentially we had to start from scratch and look at the different shapes in Voyager. And even though we're never going to get it 100%, like we don't have the capability to make 100% accurate things. What we can do is look at specific shapes. Like, for example, in one of in the deflector control room set, there's these sort of bars that are along the wall, and they have an inch wide gap with a beveled end, and they reoccur in a lot of Voyager sets and a lot of the Next Generation sets. And so it was kind of using things like that, that the audience is familiar enough with, even subconsciously, that they can be like, yeah, that's a Voyager set, or this is the era we're trying to do.
Yeah, because as a viewer, I realized that this is not the actual Nova class starship, but they had, I forgive you. You tried, and you tried really well. It looks, and
I think the good thing about using a ship that isn't really seen, and we watched the episode of Voyager where that ship is, and seeing what they repurposed from the Voyager sets as corridors and things like that. And because they're so dark and they are repurposed, it sort of gave us a bit of freedom to do it sort of our way. And yeah, and we were never going to show the bridge. There's a very short clip of Kate green screened in front of the bridge, but we were never going to build a bridge. That was never going to happen. So
yeah, those are very tough to do.
Yeah.
Although that Sam Cockings has lots and lots of bridge backgrounds if you ever want to do green screen.
Well, so that's what we did in Outbreak. Sam actually rendered out a bridge background for Kate to stand in front of for that little bit. But that was just because that was just a burn in on monitor screen, so we could, in my mind, get away with the fact that it was green screened.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's obviously, green screens, Sam does a lot of stuff with green screens, and it's, obviously very limited motion of the actors. But, for you guys, you have a little bit more to play with. So we'll get back to Kate about acting in the garage, or the garage, as you say, down under. So well, first of all, let me ask you, Kate, what is your background as an actress? Have you done more stage? Have you done movie, television, camera stuff? What has happened for you?
To be honest, I still keep saying I'm still relatively new to this, because I did a little bit sort of back in school and university days, but I ended up working behind the scenes. So I worked in the television industry in the UK for a few years, and then kind of moved into media and marketing over the years. But I always missed acting, so about 5 years ago I decided to sort of try and get back into it, and went to acting classes and started kind of doing a little bit of local theatre. And the job that I did with Aaron with the B-roll project was probably one of the first kind of short film pieces that I worked on, sort of when I was first sort of trying it out. So since then I've just been doing as much as I can sort of in the local scene, in terms of working on short films and doing theatrical productions. And it's just great kind of working with people like Aaron that write really interesting scripts. And to be honest, I wasn't that familiar with Star Trek, so a lot of what was being presented to me was like, with this script, when I got it, I was like, Borg, what's a Borg? I'm going to have to Google it. But it was good because it's like I had to kind of do a lot of extra research, and Aaron kind of gave me some pointers. So but for me it was just like, okay, who am I? Why am I here? What's my problem? What have I got to try and overcome? Who's getting in my way? Why are they getting in my way? All of that kind of thing. And then just when we kind of had read-throughs and a little bit of rehearsal, just kind of getting that vibe from the other actors in terms of, okay, how are they playing their characters and what might I need to adjust? And then Aaron kind of giving us notes on set and just, reacting to that.
So in terms of the fact that you were doing all this in a 2-car garage, how does that impact you as an actor?
I mean, to be honest, because I was kind of, I've been familiar with sets and working in production environments for a number of years. So I understand kind of just how everything's cheated and the movie magic that kind of, goes along in terms of what looks amazingly huge on the screen can often be a tiny little space. So I was kind of used to that in some ways. I think with this piece like Resistance, it was just the fact of the time of year and the fact that it was an incredibly hot summer, and the garage that we were shooting in was just retaining all the heat, and it was building day by day. So
how hot was it? I'm just kind of curious.
It was obscene. It was over 40 degrees. So it's like it's when the heat gets just kind of crazy and everyone gets
40 degrees Celsius. I think that's in the, like, for those who don't speak Celsius, who don't speak metric, I believe 40 degrees, like, we're approaching 100 Fahrenheit.
So the water, the water you keep drinking just it just comes out in sweat, like it just literally it doesn't come out any other way. I dread to think sort of how disgusting those jumpsuits were at the end of each day, Aaron, for you to have to launder, because we were just dripping inside them. But again, I mean, for me, I kind of go, okay, well, this is, you just make this is the environment is like that on the spaceship. The stakes are being raised, and they're being raised in a physical way as well as an emotional way. So can I use that in some way? But I've got to say, every time they said cut, we were all like, can we go into the air-conditioned lounge now, please? And unfortunately, Aaron and the rest of the crew were having to stay in the garage, the set area, pretty much all the time, because they were having to set up for the next take. I think that was the main sort of challenge just with this film, was just the environmental factor. But other than that, because like I said before, the sets that the Aarons design and create are so fabulous and so well made, as soon as you step onto them, it's just like, well, here I am, I'm in a cave, and there's these drawings on the wall that I'm really interested in. So I just think it makes it a whole lot easier to go with it when you've got the world being created in such a great way in terms of the production design.
Now here we are in December, and so that's winter for us up north half of the equator, but you guys are reversed, so you are now entering your summer. So when was this filmed? Was this filmed a year ago? When was it shot?
So this was shot. We finished shooting it in March this year, but I think we shot all the way through February.
I think we were in February, yeah, for a lot of the time, because it was about 7 days all up, wasn't it? Staggered over a few weeks.
Yeah. Originally it was supposed to be 6, and then we added in a little extra scene, which was the sort of next generation flashback stuff. So yeah, everyone very graciously came back and did that half day.
They came for the scones, you know that, right?
Yeah, they came for the scones.
Thank your mother.
But yeah, but before that, when we did Outbreak, that was in September, so that was sort of just the start of spring, so it was pretty cool. But then the one we did before, I think, was Beyond the Sun, was in that was
Beyond the Sun was summertime
March,
as
April.
well.
Yeah.
So it was warm-ish, but yeah, in comparison.
Not to the same, yeah.
Now, which was the one that Kate did the B-roll footage for? Because I think the captain had a more significant role in Beyond the Sun, right?
Yeah, so the B-roll footage she's talking about is for Mark Nacaredo did his the Romulan War, and Kate did like a monologue to camera, which I don't think has been released.
It's not been released. I did not know. So you kept talking about B-roll. It's like, well, Kate's always been more significant in your films, but okay. So now I understand what the B-roll is. Mark Nacaredo, Nacarado, I can never remember how it's pronounced, is still working on the Romulan War Part 2. I think some of that has to do with the fact that he's got about 1 million different visual effects shots from Sam Cockings, and the bloke can only work so fast. But yes, we're all looking forward to the release of that. So Kate, who are you in the Romulan War? We'll look for it.
I think my character's name was Governor Nechayev. And I believe I had a bit of an Eastern European accent that I needed to add to that character. So yeah, I honestly can't remember. It was like 4 years ago, I think, that we did that.
It was a long time ago. I think it was just we'd finished Line of Duty, or it was between Line of Duty and the one before. But yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it was I remember it was a monologue to camera.
So that's sort of interesting because Mark is based in Tennessee. So why is he going all the way to Australia to get B-roll footage of Nechayev? I'm just sort of curious how that happened.
We did shoot a lot of things. There was some there were like some Romulan like centurions for like a big stage scene that he did that we shot on green screen. I think he just wanted sort of costumes and props for like sort of background things. But there was another actor that filmed a monologue which did get released, that we shot, that was on our sets, and then just sort of random like stuff with Makos sort of running about up and down corridors and things like that. So it was just like a sort of half day shoot of just miscellaneous things.
How did you guys first connect?
I think he reached out to me. He'd just seen obviously what we'd done, and then just sort of wanted a bit of background for his film. I
think it's great. I love it when fan filmmakers work together. I mean, even obviously across the entire planet. But that is fantastic that you can help. I know. I think you've worked with at least one other fan filmmaker doing something, right? Or is it just been Mark?
The only other person we worked with is Sam, I think. So we actually shot for one of Sam's short tracks with Kate, just after we finished Resistance. So there's a short track with Sam that hopefully is going to be released soon, and Kate's in that one. She's the lead.
Yeah, when you say released soon, Sam has just released 4 fan films in 5 weeks, and I have blogged about each and every one of them, trying to help him get money for his crowdfunder. Man is making fan films faster than I can blog about them.
It's a lot of content.
In fact, I chatted with him just about 24 hours ago, and his crowdfunding campaign has just about come to an end. In fact, actually, I think it came to an end about 5.5 hours ago. But he says, now I'm going to sleep.
Yeah, it's been a long road for him. I think he was very exhausted. So,
well, I always know this because obviously there's people around the world that I deal with, and in the case of Sam, I just know that after about maybe noon to 3 o'clock my time, Sam will be asleep. He's in Great Britain, and I'm in Los Angeles, and I have been seeing texts from Sam coming in at like 5 p.m., 7 p.m. my time, and you think obviously it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Go to sleep, man. And I just recently, it's like I don't think he's been sleeping at all. I think he's just literally been around the clock.
I have
Which, by
noticed
the
that as
way,
well. Yes.
that's the way to do a crowdfunder, folks. There's so many people I see, doing crowdfunders, and they just like, okay, I will build it, and they will come. Like, no, you have to bring them there. You have to network behind the scenes. You have to, ask people, for help reaching out to their own mailing lists. And yes, there's a lot of folks that'll just give you $10 or $20 or 10 or 20 pounds or whatever. And that's great, but every so often you have to go and call up the people that do have some money and beg hat in hand, and be very nice about it. If you want to, get up into the big bucks. And so I just see so many people, putting together a crowdfunding campaign. So, well, they did it. We'll just, throw $10,000, $15,000 on there, and they end up with like 500. And like, because for 30 days or 60 days, it is your job. That is your job to raise money. Which, by the way, you've never crowdfunded, have you?
Nope.
How much does all this wood and everything else, all this stuff that you're building these sets for? Because I mean, how many different sets did you have for Resistance? I lost count.
I think there would have been 5 or 6.
At least.
We did 7 days, so there would have been 8. Because
you had
swung one around. Yeah.
Different one every day, huh?
Yeah.
So I mean that's gotta cost decent bucks just for like lumber and stuff like that, right?
Yep. Sure does. It comes all from my pocket.
Have you ever thought about crowdfunding? Like, there
I
are
have
people
thought
who
about
give
it.
you money.
Before we did the Star Trek ones, I crowdfunded this Doctor Who project, and that didn't go well. But it didn't go well because it was reported. And because the BBC are a public broadcaster, they have to investigate anything that gets reported to them, and they just had to act on it because they had to act on it, and so we had to shut it down. But it was for like $5,000, so that was that. But yeah, that sort of left a sour taste in my mouth, and to be perfectly honest, and this is just my view, and I may get in, as we make more films, we may go down this route. I just think that it's my project and I should pay for it. That's just how I feel about it. I also don't want to be upholden to other people and deadlines and things like that. That also concerns me. But again, I think I'm at the point, and I'm at this age and in this industry where you can't always rely on people's goodwill. Like, it's very generous that people like Kate, even Aaron, and our crew and stuff work for free, but free things, that doesn't pay a bill for somebody, and if they have to give up a day or whatever. So I definitely think moving forward that there has to be some kind of sort of compensation for people's work.
I'll give you some money. I don't mind.
Just keep making the scones, Aaron. Just keep making the scones. That's what I say. That's right.
Maybe we should do a fundraiser with the scones.
We're all good.
Well, the thing
We'll
is also
art and scones.
Well, I wanted to talk about your mom again for a sec, because not only is she making you food to eat, but she's making you clothing to wear. She is your costume designer. So your mom must really love you.
Yes, mum and dad. Yes, very much.
Is your dad the other Vanderkley that I see in your credits, or is that a different one?
Yes.
Okay,
Dad, I feel very bad because Dad, I always get the credit for like on-set assistance, or he's a background extra or something, but he does do a lot of other things, like electronics and helping us wrangle monitors and things like that, and just the occasional setting up sets and things like that. But yeah, both mum and dad. Dad is the Star Trek fan of the family. Dad's sort of responsible for all this, and mum just has to deal with it. But no, they've always been really supportive. And to highlight just how supportive, my mum unfortunately had been ill for this last film, and so she wasn't able to contribute as much as she usually does. And we felt that, and you kind of realize. It's kind of sad, but you kind of realize how important someone is in the background that you're not conscious of otherwise. So yeah, so that was slightly difficult, both on an emotional level and also from a production perspective as well. So, you've lost that one person. So
Is she still ill, or has she gotten better?
she's on the mend now, but yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I was worried about your mom. Uh, um, so I'm just kind of curious about, we talked about Kate's background, but for the Aarons, obviously Aaron V, you work in the film industry. That is your job, right?
At the moment, I work for a robotics company
Oh,
in marketing, and I'm a filmmaker for them. So that's what I do full time. But before that, I was like freelancing in the sort of like Perth film community. And I still try and
does
sorry.
Perth have a big film community? I'm just sort of curious.
It's like I would say it does. It's sort of like maybe not underground, but like there's a lot happening. It's just a matter of making sure you're connected with people and working out.
It's very surprising. When I
Yeah.
kind of started sort of deciding that I wanted to re-explore acting, I was astonished at just how much was happening and how much people were creating in what is a sort of, still like, one of the smaller Australian sort of capital cities and, very isolated part of the world, and not known for its arts community in the sense that it's not known for kind of being an established arts hub. But I think sometimes that plays a part in isolated cities is sometimes there are people who actually have maybe less to distract them or more passion or more drive, and they just kind of have less to lose because, there's not so much kind of competition or high profile projects on the go. So, I think there's actually, a surprising lot continues to bubble along, and particularly in the indie filmmaking space. There's a lot of people who are really keen to kind of have a go and tell stories and gather sort of people into their hubs.
So for you, Aaron, did you do film at university?
Yeah, so I studied 3 years doing screen production, and then tried to get a job, and it was very difficult, and it took me 5 years. But in the meantime, I was freelancing. I was doing event work and all sorts of things. So yeah, when you work full time, especially for a company that is very creatively restricting, as in you have people that are above you that make decisions and things like that, and you can't always do what you want to do. It drives you to be creative, and I guess doing these projects sort of keeps me being creative. And again, it keeps me in the Perth industry so that I can work with people like Kate. I can work with people like my crew like Clayton, Blake, Stephen, and work with them on other projects, other paid projects as well. So yeah.
And did you get because obviously you're an amazing set builder, both of you together. Did you get your set design experience working in film, or have you just always been somebody who's been able to build and create things?
I guess that's a credit to my dad. My dad always built and created things for me. Dad, when I was a kid, Dad could do anything out of a cardboard box. And I inherited that, and he built me like my first TARDIS and TARDIS console, and then I managed to learn how to build them myself, and then that sort of come from Dad, really.
My dad never built me a TARDIS, so that's pretty special, actually. And then Aaron C, what about you? Because you're obviously doing an amazing job building these sets as well. So what's your background?
So before I met Aaron in 2020, I had never watched Star Trek. So this is all pretty new to me still as ongoing.
That's dedication. He's just roped you into it.
And now I can't stay away from it. I'm like, when are we watching the next episode of Deep Space Nine, which we're going through at the moment? But it's just really enjoyable. But I have a background in events sort of management. So I am fully qualified in that, but trying to find a job in that industry during a time of COVID was quite hard. So at the moment, I'm actually working for an insurance company. So probably one of the biggest insurance companies in Australia. and I just sell insurance to customers for their small businesses or farms. But yeah, similar again to Aaron, this is a sort of creative side of me that I love. I've always loved designing things, putting a pencil on paper. So yeah, just drawing things. As I said, it's just something that just comes naturally to me. I used to draw as a kid or growing up. I'm quite creative. I'm not sure if you can see behind Aaron, but there's currently a big Lego bag sitting behind him. So that is
there
my
it is.
creative side of things. I've got surrounded by Lego at the moment. So yeah.
Yeah.
And there's the TARDIS up there somewhere.
But Aaron, when we sort of met, he actually said that he had an interest in like set design that he sort of never got to explore. So he's kind of doing.
I'm doing it. I'm living my dream, my fantasy.
That's awesome. I have to say, back when I was in college, pardon me, and I was about to graduate with a degree in psychology of all things, which would have meant about another 6 years of school and having to pay for it. And my parents took me to a place called the Johnston O'Connor Occupational Testing Service. And it was like 2 days of the most ridiculous kind of testing. Pardon me. It's still in the morning. Some of the tests were, you had to pick up little things with tweezers and put them into tiny little peg holes. And you had like a minute to do as many of those as possible. And some of them were word associations, and some of them were drawing and pattern stuff and what have you. And just 2 days of tests. And the third day, they would basically tell you, what your best job would be based on your test results. And so I sat down in the office of the evaluator, and the person said, have you ever thought about a career in design engineering? And I said, what does that have to do with psychology? And the person said, well, do you want to be a psychologist? And I said, well, I am like 6 credits short of the major at this point. And they said, well, we're not saying that, pardon me, that you have to be a psychologist, but everybody has certain peaks and valleys, certain things they're very, very good at. Like, for example, putting the pegs in the little things. If you do that really, really well, you might want to be like a jewelry maker or a watchmaker, or work with electronics in some way. But I didn't have that, obviously. But what I did have was pattern recognition, ability to picture things in 3 dimensions, and things that typically a psychologist didn't have. And I matched some stuff a psychologist would have. I had a very analytical mind, for example. I was a subjective personality type, which meant that you tend to become an expert in one thing as opposed to a jack of all trades. But what they explained to me is they said, your peaks and valleys match people who would be a very, very happy, or have said they were very happy as graphic designers, art directors, design engineers. And if you got a job that didn't have all of your peaks in it, they might leak. Like, for example, if somebody's a banker and really wants to be a concert pianist, they might go to the local pub on the weekends and, the open mic night, and just sort of sit down at the piano and play for an hour or two. And it was kind of funny because, here I was a psychology major, but I was also part of a Star Trek fan club, and I was doing the newsletter for the fan club. And it was very granular, using, all sorts of desktop publishing at the time. Had just come out, and I was doing a lot of that. And, I had my art, and I had, I was drawing and sketching and stuff. And I was like, wow. So it is kind of leaking, because, there was really nothing graphically creative about psychology, let me tell you. So, so for both of the Aarons, especially for Aaron C, selling insurance, I'm guessing, does not really nurture your creative side. So it looks like it's leaking, which is great. I mean, this is really a wonderful outlet for you, and I'm so glad you guys got together so that this could happen for both of you, because that's just, obviously, I'm guessing insurance is not really the most exciting thing in your life, right?
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm really good at the job, so I feel like it's something that I really enjoy. Surprisingly, you wouldn't think you would enjoy a job in insurance, but yeah, something I enjoy doing. But I just need that creative outlet just to to keep life exciting.
But I think you enjoy it because you have the personality type that you're very like social and you like talking to people, and so that's a big aspect. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, it uses some of the stuff that you're good at. Obviously, if you're in a job where it doesn't match any of your peaks and valleys, you're miserable. So it's good that good you're a people person. Excuse me. So, man, it really is still early for me. Anyway, so and we're probably reaching close to the end of the interview. So, let me ask. And I already know the answer to this, unfortunately, but so Aaron V, this is your last fan film for a while. You said you're going to go into a bit of hiatus.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, unfortunately it is. So for the first series we did 5, and I thought 5 was a little bit too much. And especially now that we've sort of tried to better ourselves each time, and the stories are actually longer, significantly longer. Trying to do 5 is a bit too much, so I capped this at 3. I knew going into it that it would just be 3. Didn't stop me from coming up with ideas for more, but we capped it at 3. But yeah, I just it's one of those things where we've sort of been going at this particular season for a long time. Like when we finished Beyond the Sun, we kind of went straight into Outbreak. That was September last year. Outbreak didn't get released until April this year, but during that time we'd made Resistance, and again that didn't get released until like November. So it's a long time to be in that sort of Star Trek. That's sort of, it's always in the back of your head, and you're always working something on it. I think once we sort of finish the sort of publicity run of this film, that's when it will sink in that it's over, and maybe I'll feel like, oh, I need something to do. I need to write another one. But yeah, I think it's just that thing of it is intense when you're, as much as it is a hobby, it's a very full-on hobby
and a very expensive hobby.
Very expensive hobby, yeah.
And it takes up your free time. We very rarely had a weekend where we didn't build sets or paint sets or design sets or film or whatever. So you kind of feel a bit of fatigue.
How long does it take you to build one of those sets, by the way? I mean, just a full garage.
In terms of actually constructing it for a shoot, probably a day or half a day. But in terms of building individual pieces, I think we started at the start of December and we'd finished filming in March, so that we had a very short window.
So were you filming one set at a time? Or sorry, not building. Were you building one set at a time, and then you used it, and then dumpster, and then build another set, and then dumpster? Or were you saving the sets? You don't necessarily put them in the dumpster.
A combination of the two. One of the things that I learned from the previous films is that having elements which reoccur in all the sets is really useful, because you can just move them around and turn them into different rooms. Like generic things like a door is always going to appear, so that's always good. The windows, so in Resistance, Kate's quarters, the window for that we'd saved for over a year in storage from Beyond the Sun. But then there are other things that had to be sort of purpose built, like the computer sort of engineering style computer terminal thing that was purpose built for this. And yeah, we tried to build as much as we can at the start, so then we can repurpose generic walls as like corridors. And by the end of it, for the cave set, we just sort of had the bare bones of sort of door frames and wall flats to make that sort of 3D cave structure. So a combination of saving stuff and then trashing it.
Now, when you store this, do you have, pardon me, any storage in your home area, or do you like rent storage for?
Unfortunately, it was stored at home in a lovely area which Mum and Dad have now reclaimed. But yeah, but again, you know,
You have the best parents ever. I got to tell you, they're putting up with
yeah,
this stuff.
the other films, like you were saying before, sort of felt like it was shot over 5 years, and so that's a lot of time to be without one of your areas of your house. Whereas this one, we were trying to do it so it was all in a year and it was all done. That kind of didn't go to plan, but yeah, we still managed to get it all out. But yeah, it was actually a really sad day when we finally got rid of all the sets. And some of the stuff had been there since little things had been there since Needs of the Many, so it was a long time. And as we tipped it over the edge at the sort of recycling center, you know, we could point out all different bits and pieces from different films, so it was kind of bittersweet.
Pieces of your life just going off the cliff. Oh man, I can only imagine. But you know, hey, you know what you've accomplished here. I mean, you know, you'll always have this. You know, as long as YouTube exists, and you know, as I like to say, you know, completing a fan film is worthy of applause, and it's one of the reasons I do the blog. You know, is that you know a lot of people talk about doing fan films, and some people even start it. But you know, you guys not only start it, you finish it, and your stuff that you release is just absolutely incredible. You know, it's really amazing. So you know, you have certainly a lot to be proud of, and you know, not to say, you know, personally, I hope you make more. I hope you come back to this, but I understand the idea of I just want to take a break and not think about Star Trek fan films for a while.
I'm sure we will be back at some point, but when that is, could be a year, could be two. We'll see.
Oh, well, a year or two, that's not so bad. I can wait that long. I certainly wait that long. There's enough other fan films coming out that I can cover. But yeah, and Kate, how about you? Are you looking to return to this wonderful, wacky world of Star Trek fan filmmaking if they come up with another character for you?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, you know, I'm pleased that at least my character wasn't killed off. So, you know, who knows? Like in 20 years' time, maybe we can wheel the captain back on as a pensioner.
That's right. You told me in the pre-interview that yeah, you originally were told that your character was originally going to just be killed off in some way. What was the justification on that one? Was she like not going to survive the Borg experience, or?
So this story was actually completely different. So I'd started writing it before we'd done Outbreak, and the idea was actually one of the first shots of the film was Kate being stabbed through the chest, sort of Captain Georgiou style.
Oh my God.
And the story would be about these rebels that had taken over the ship and they'd killed the captain, and the first officer character would be the one sort of going through this sort of emotional PTSD experience as he watched, you know, the person that he was supposed to look after be killed, and they went through this journey of trying to take back the ship. So in some ways it was very, very similar to Resistance. The first officer character we used for Outbreak instead, and then that actor moved back to the UK, so we couldn't work with him again. But the ops character was still there. Maximiliano Lafont, who was in Beyond the Sun as the engineer, he was supposed to reappear, and he would have been that reoccurring character, because he was sort of still locked down in his quarters, and he still felt guilty that he let the captain down. So his sort of final sacrifice was that he would make amends for that. So yeah, it was very different. And in fact, Paul, the first officer actor, he gave me the idea to do the Borg, and I thought, oh, that's probably going to be a bit difficult with all prosthetics and makeup and things like that. But then we sort of found a way around it. And when Max wasn't going to be available, I thought we'd bring back Kate. In fact, Kate we brought back for a little cameo. I asked her whether she would come back for a cameo in Outbreak, and she came back. And while she was on set, she said how much she enjoyed it and how much she'd love to work with us again. And when I was walking her out, I took her aside and said, hey, if I write you as a main character and I give you some actual meat to play with, will you come back? And she said, yeah. And so that's why we sort of had the possessed Borg, Kate, and we had the sort of captain with the emotional journey with her son. And yeah, I tried to throw everything at Kate, so she had lots to do.
It was great. There was so much. Yeah, when I read the script, it was just like, oh, I'm not just being me, I'm being another me. And it was so terrific. Thank you again for writing me. And I'm so glad that Paul and Maximiliano just decided to leave town as well. Because if they hadn't decided to leave, I would have just been killed off, and that's it.
Oh, actors, just get them out of the way. I'm glad you had so much to do. I mean, you knocked it out of the park on this one. I mean, it was just wonderful watching you. Because it's not easy playing a Borg. uh, I mean, not that I've ever had the experience, but it's just you kind of have to play it emotionless, but at the same point in time, you play it too emotionless. It's not threatening; it's boring. So you put quite a bit of yourself into that. So I'm not sure if people realize, how challenging it is to be that kind of a character, and to also, keep some of your character's original aspects as well, when you become that Borg.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron helped me with that because I knew nothing about the Borg, and pointed me the direction of some sort of Star Trek content to watch, and that helped kind of, just kind of looking at how other actors had portrayed that, particularly the ones that had been taken over by the Borg. So I could kind of see, what a part of their personality you can still kind of feel is sort of underneath the Borg. But Aaron also kind of gives really good notes on set as well. So that always really helps. But the interesting thing with the Borg prostheses, because it was so hot, and we were getting so sweaty, like there were a number of times where I was doing a take and I'm not, doing the dialogue and listening to what the other actor's saying, but I'm also thinking, can just feel this thing starting to slide off my cheek. I'm not sure if it's going to show up on camera or not, but I'm sure like either Aaron or Clayton will see. And
well, the one thing about Aaron I can tell you is that he shoots a really, really good looking fan film. So I didn't see any of your prosthetics sliding off at all. And I have to say that, the one thing I have not mentioned at all in all of this, but it's actually probably one of the most crucial and artistic aspects of what you do, is you have the most amazing lighting. I mean, in your garage, but you probably don't have a lot of room for a lot of lights. But I mean, you shot stuff in low light, which is not easy, folks. And then bright light, and it's just everything is just so immaculately lit. So I haven't really given any real love or attention to that during this interview yet, but just kudos on that.
Yeah, that's kudos to Clayton Orgles, who's the DOP, and also Blake, who sets it all up. But it is a very tight space, but we managed to somehow get a lot of lights. It's a long pack up afterwards. But with the cave set, I think Aaron probably talked to a bit of the construction of that, but that was something that sort of came together at the last minute, and the way Clayton lit it made it look great on screen.
Let's hear it for Clayton.
Oh, I want to talk about the cave. Sorry.
With
the cave, it was sort of Aaron had a vision for this cave to have it with expanding foam. We tried it in a small area of the cave, and then it wasn't working. The space it was covering, it just didn't look very good. So we turned to the idea of just using like craft paper and sticking it together and like molding sort of rocks around the cave to build that setup. Which was all done probably in the space of a week, getting home from work and just sticking this paper together to make these cave walls. It was very exhausting, but I feel like in this film, it was probably one of the better sets that we did, probably the better looking sets, especially with lighting coming together. I'm pretty sure lots of the lighting was just from the torches on the wrists of the captain, the first officer, and the Andorian, who was my cameo. But that was all 3D printed. Those were custom torches, which had two
mag lights
in
them. But that was really.
Yeah, by the way, torches is what they call flashlights, folks in America. They call them torches.
It's just so confusing. Can't keep up with the lingo.
Oh, it's okay. You guys have your own language. We have ours. It's okay. Be the translator.
But yeah, actually, also another person to sort of shout out to is Nicholas Gardner, who did the original music for this. Nick, a bit like Sam, is one of those people that you can give him a brief and he'll just bash out exactly what you require with very little notes. And I actually didn't give Nick any notes because he just somehow got the sound, the Star Trek sound. He knew
perfect.
the era I was
Yeah.
going for, and yeah, he did a great job.
Because it
Very
sounds like
grateful.
Voyager. I mean, you hear the opening credits, and you just, it sounds like Voyager, but it's so much shorter. But that's
I do
him.
have to say
No.
that is the only bit that we've sampled from a
Oh.
soundtrack. So that bit
Oh.
isn't Nick.
Oh, okay.
But
So
everything else is Nick.
Okay, well, I completely embarrassed myself. Okay, but everything else that he did is just great. I just for the rest of the film, you just the great thing about a music track is if you notice the music track, it's not right. You shouldn't notice the music track unless you're really specifically listening to it, and it's just the foundation under which everything else comes through. But Resistance, honestly, yeah, I think it's probably your best yet.
Thank you.
So have continued. The Line of Duty was pretty darn good. I love them all. I love them all. The thing is, I love an Andrew Vanderkleey film. But like I said, if you need a little break, a year, even two, maybe 2.5. Well, we can wait because we really do. We appreciate everything that you've given us. It's so entertaining. It's so satisfying to watch. So thank you very much, all of you, for your efforts and your team, because just an absolute real fan film triumph.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you for always supporting us.
Hey, I got the easy part of the job. All righty, folks. Well, I will let you guys get to bed because now it's after 11 p.m. your time, and I have to go get my son to school and get a cup of coffee.
Well, thank you, very much for interviewing us. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys are very welcome. Take care.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks, Jonathan.